Okay, well, I suppose for me, Connotations was a major piece in the sense of my early career. It was the first major competition that I had written the set work for. And so 1977, I was only 32. I think I was the youngest composer ever to be commissioned to write that piece. And so for me, I wanted to do something which I suppose made its mark in a new way. Now, the one thing I'd say about this is that my style as a composer had been evolving. And one of the things that this piece highlights is something about where I was at that stage in my compositional working out. And that is a question of the harmony. Now, if you remember, the beginning of Connotation goes, and the different thing about that is it's a series of perfect fourths. If you then build harmony on that, you get this kind of, which is very different from triadic harmony. So at that stage of my compositional development, I was into what's called quartal harmony, harmony built on fourths. And so the theme itself, when you hear the opening, which is cornets followed by, it's a sort of prelude, I suppose, really, to what comes. And then, of course, that sort of little bluesy kind of note is something that's quite interesting as well. But then the theme comes, and then of course you have the sets of variations, etc. It was an important work for me because when you have a major commission, and in those days the national competition was the big competition in a sense, because, and there used to be a full Albert Hall in those days, absolutely chock-a-block, full, 5,000 people. It's a big opportunity for a young composer. So I kind of wanted to make a statement, I suppose, in a way. And this piece was, as you quite rightly say, something different from what had come before. And I'm still very fond of it, and seemingly a lot of other people are still very fond of it. I think it's a very compact work. It's quite contained. It's only actually 12, 13 minutes long. But I think within that short structure, it's got a lot of different kinds of music in it, in the variations, from the kind of emotional to the abstract to the rhythmic to the relaxed pastoral. It's got all of those things within 12, 13 minutes. And so I think it gives an opportunity to a band to show its lyrical style of playing and its more kind of what I call orchestral style of playing, with minimum vibrato and more kind of penetrating in the attack, like you'd hear an orchestral brass section playing. But there's also lots of opportunity to play in what one might call the usual brass band style. Bands and organisers of events tend, and I feel quite strongly about this, tend to look at purely the technical demands. If you look at Connotations, technically, it's not really a ridiculously difficult piece. One doesn't tend to look at musical challenges. And I always say at this point, when I'm talking about how brass band competitions are, if it was me, I would set Holst's Moorside Suite tomorrow for the top section bands in any country. And any band who can play the second movement of that beautifully, without blemish, and sounding absolutely superb, would be a really fine band. Other bands wouldn't do it so well. So what I'm really saying is the old adage that simple music technically doesn't mean to say that it's simple musically. And I think it was Arthur Schnabel, the great pianist, said that Mozart is too easy for children and too difficult for professionals. And that's a very astute saying, because playing a Mozart sonata, a Mozart symphony, a Mozart concerto is still one of the most difficult things you can do. Music stripped almost of really challenging technical demands, not that it's easy, of course it's not, but actually to make it logic and coherent musically and communicate with an audience is one of the most difficult things of all. Yes, it will not pose Huge difficulty technically, not huge, it's still difficult, but it won't be hugely difficult, but musically it's still a really, really big challenge. So yes, I think that's how it came about. I was pleased with it, and it seemed to go down very well. And the lovely thing is, here we are, 50 years after it's been written, still being performed and now being played in Utrecht. And I'm very happy. I shall look forward to hearing the first section bands playing it.